word, it's chaos.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed. Where a town turns into a city. And a playoffs weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. It's a tradition like no other. At a track like no other. And after it's all over, you still won't believe it ever happened. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. I'm Roger Hoover. It's great to be with you from our Tuscaloosa studios as we start to go through the first of two Crimson Drives for the week. And we'll go through everything coming up on the show today, thanks to our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us a smart board to go through everything coming up on the show today. First of all, we'll have a one-on-one conversation coming up with Deontae Lawson, the signal caller for the Crimson Tide defense, an outstanding linebacker who led Alabama in tackles on Saturday, will join us first. Then we'll take a look back to the booth cam highlights with Chris Stewart and Tyler Watts from the win at South Florida. Then we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with Coach's Checklist, as he had a very notable press conference with some breaking news on Monday. Then we'll talk to one of our great Alabama legends and former Crimson Tide quarterback, Scott Hunter. He led Alabama to one of the most dramatic wins of the Bryant era against Ole Miss back in 1969 when he outdueled Archie Manning at Legion Field. So great stories coming up with Scott Hunter. Then we'll take a look back to last night's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind with Be Kind. Crimson Tide Rewind getting Corey Reamer's thoughts on the South Florida game and everything coming up for the Tide. Taking a look at the Crimson Tide football team, of course, it wasn't pretty at times, especially when you had the weather delay in the middle of that game, but Alabama picked up the win at South Florida. That's all that matters. 17-3, the final score, so Alabama improves to 2-1 on the year. Now the Crimson Tide set up for the SEC opener against the Ole Miss Rebels coming up on Saturday at 2:30. It's been a great run against Ole Miss in recent years as Alabama has won 7 straight against Ole Miss, and Coach Saban against Coach Kiffin, a former Alabama offensive coordinator. Coach Saban is 4-0 against Kiffin. That includes 3 wins against Ole Miss, plus 1 when Kiffin was the head coach at Tennessee back in 2009. What up, Terrence Cody? Let's go to the Crimson Tide soccer team. Last Thursday had a 1-1 draw with Georgia. As some of the draws have continued for Alabama, this remains an undefeated team, and the Crimson Tide picked up a win to close out non-conference play 5-1 at Mercer on Sunday. Now this week, really pivotal matchup against the Arkansas Razorbacks on Thursday night at 6:30 on SEC Network Plus. Arkansas was picked to win the SEC just in front of Alabama, so that really is a key early season match coming up against the Hogs. Coming up, we have already seen the RPI standings for the first week, and Alabama sits at number 5, so in great shape with the resume already being built up strong for the NCAA tournament, where last year Alabama made it to the College Cup. Some other notes, volleyball team also wrapping up non-conference play over this past week, had wins at Troy and then at home on Saturday against Grambling State. Now coming up this week, SEC play will start Friday at Ole Miss and I believe on Sunday at Mississippi State. So a trip to the Magnolia State coming up for Rashinda Reed and the Crimson Tide volleyball team. Tennis team already underway. Men's and tennis teams had some events over this past weekend. And then in basketball, men's and women's basketball, we're now less than 50 days to tip off coming up on Monday, November 6th, so we are really getting fired up to be back inside Coleman Coliseum. Crimson Tide football team fired up to be back at home at Bryant-Denny Stadium coming up this Saturday. That's one of the sentiments shared with us by Deontae Lawson, Crimson Tide linebacker, as part of our one-on-one conversations that we have with Tide football players this week on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide, congratulations on the win on Saturday. What did the defense do best to keep South Florida out of the end zone?
Just playing together, playing on all phases of the game that we needed to play with. I feel like we dominated that game.
We talked with you week 1 about your role as the signal caller for this Crimson Tide defense. That was before you played in the game this year. How do you feel 3 games in?
I feel better. Still trying to get better as the week go on, but just ready for this weekend. It'll be a challenge.
Absolutely. You've been described as one of the leaders for the linebackers. We'll start with the defensive line. Who's really leading the way up there?
I think Justin DeBoybe, he's doing a good job trying to get them guys going. Jaheim Otis, he's another good name. Really, all of them guys, they're working hard. They're trying to do whatever they can to make us a good defense.
How about in the secondary?
Malachi Moore, he's been doing what he has to do, and that started in the offseason. Him, Kool-Aid McKinstry, really all of them guys. Caleb Downs has been a vocal leader as well. So, I mean, with the help of those guys, I think we can get this thing going.
How fired up was the team for Malachi Moore? Had the interception against South Florida, had a lot of great tackles as well.
Oh yeah, we're fired up for anyone that makes plays, really. But for me personally, Malachi, we go way back, so I feel like I was very excited for him, and just to see the work he's been putting in, and it's showing.
Now you got to get ready for a very good Ole Miss team coming to town on Saturday with a very mobile quarterback. What's the key to shutting down a running quarterback like Jackson Dart?
Similar to last week, just rush together when we pressure, and just keep him in the pocket, make him make his reads.
What kind of atmosphere do you want to see inside Bryant-Denny Stadium from our fans?
I want it to be lit. 3:30 game, that's what we love, so it'll be a show for sure.
Well, Deontae, Lawson, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck against Ole Miss. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, thank you.
Alabama racing is back. Don't miss the opportunity to experience the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs at Talladega. Witness the return of racing on October 1st and be a part of NASCAR's biggest and baddest track. Tickets are on sale now. Make memories with your friends and family that will last a lifetime. Make sure you secure your tickets today for the Yellowwood 500 at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. On Saturday, the Crimson Tide improved to 2-1 on the season with a victory at South Florida. Yes, it wasn't pretty at times, but we still had a good time making sure that Alabama got the win to close out this portion of the non-conference schedule. Chris Stewart, Tyler Watts, and I were on the call from Raymond James Stadium, and we had the Royal Furniture booth cam streaming live all throughout the ballgame, even during the weather delay that we had in the first half. It was certainly an active booth cam on Saturday, and we have that booth cam running on Facebook, YouTube, throughout all Crimson Tide football games this season. Here's a look back at what you may have missed from our booth cam on Saturday against USF.
The kick is up. We are underway from Tampa as this one will sail into and through the back of the end zone. Play action. Brown stepping up in the pocket. Pressure coming. He gets wrapped up and brought down. Deontae Lawson. A great play for the Crimson Tide.
Oh, they got the crowd in the game. They're going to go for it here. And the way this offensive line's pushing us around, why not?
Alex Golesh, the head coach, says why not? Let's roll the dice here, up 3-0 late in the first quarter. Quarterback pressure. He's going down. A loss on the play. Bama forces the takeaway as the second sack of the opening quarter results in a turnover on downs by the Bama D. Again with a man in motion. They'll go play action this time. Pressure coming from the edge. They'll beat one man. Ball's knocked loose. It's on the ground. Scramble. Bama has it. Bama has it. Crimson Tide with the football from the 25. Dallas Turner strips it away. We'll see who has it for Alabama as they unpile. I think it's the freshman from Montgomery, Alabama. James Smith comes up with it. Here comes Oots in motion, the tight end, the handoff to McClellan, trying to bounce it to the edge. Does, to the 20, to the 15, he's got a first down. Cuts it back 10, spins forward to the 8-yard line. First and goal, Alabama from there.
Boy, Seth McLaughlin did a great job there. He had penetration across his face that was trying to get upfield, and he continued to move his feet and allow McClellan to get the edge.
He puts it down. Reichard's kick from 30 yards is up. It splits the uprights, and we are tied at 3. Stokes, and they'll snap it to the up man, and he will work left side, and he won't get it. Alabama turns them away. The Bulls tried the fake punt. They could not advance it far enough. They went on the direct snap. Play action to Williams. Simpson looking downfield. Got a man tight end. Catch made to 3. 45. Drugged down at the 40. The best gain of the day for Alabama offensively. All the way to the 39-yard line. A 45-yard pickup for Alabama right there. Williams still in the ball game to the right of Ty Simpson, the quarterback now for Bama. Hand off again to Williams, bounces to the edge, cuts it back, 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, fighting to the 5-yard line. First and goal, Bama. Another bank first down from the pistol. Snap, handoff into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Finally, the Tide finds the end zone. Roy Dell Williams. The world is back on its axis somewhat as the Tide has indeed taken a 7-point advantage. We finally got good guys on top here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Everybody bunched in. They will snap it. Quarterback Keith looking for room. Doesn't find any. Down he goes. Back at the 23. Bama turns away the Bulls again. Brown stepping up, looking deep. He doesn't have anybody there except Malachi Moore. Interception, touchback. Malachi makes the pick. There was a misread on the route, but Malachi read it perfectly.
And it was not a one-on-one situation. You had both Jalen Key and Malachi Moore in the secondary. Brown Stevens ran more of a post. The ball was thrown on more of a flag route. Malachi Moore was able to adjust and catch it over shoulder. Really nice catch, by the way, over his shoulder. So it's a small adjustment, but now Alabama goes with a pistol look, and that forces DeQuan Evans, who has given Alabama so much difficulty coming off the edge. He has to hesitate because he cannot see where the ball is, and it allows for a successful play. He can't cut it back from the backside.
Again, the handoff. Williams bounces it left, bounces across the 30. Foot race, midfield, 45, 40, stops, gets knocked down, and wisely Tyler Watts stayed in bounds as he's brought down right around the 30.
Points puts this game away, though. Surely we're just going to try to draw them off.
Let's see. Simpson operating under center. Hard count, they jump. Oh, they took the bait, and Alabama will get a fresh set of downs. 1st and 10 inside the Chick-fil-A red zone. The Bull ran in to that red hanky we were waving in front of him.
Here comes Ferdinand. We haven't been underneath center all game long, and now all of a sudden we get under there, and they don't think we're trying to draw them off.
So good. It's only a one-score game. Simpson under center, tries to push the pile forward. He does. Touchdown, Alabama. Crimson Tide with 33 seconds to go. Grabs now a 16-3 lead. Brown is going to be brought down. Sacked by Alabama. Chris Braswell, the 4th sack of the day for the Alabama defense. That'll be the final play of the game. The Crimson Tide survives a gutty, gritty final drive of the game offensively for Alabama as the Tide gets the victory and claims a 17-3 win over USF.
Fun times in Tampa on the booth cam, but coming up this Saturday, we're glad to be in Tuscaloosa. And I got to ask you, where are you going to be on game day? Well, you could be part of the action with a premium reserve tailgate from Game Day Done Right. Get your group together, pick your game and tailgate package, add on catering, beverages, and other tailgating amenities, and let Game Day Done Right take it from there. Enjoy all the fun of game day with zero stress. Visit GameDayDoneRight.com to reserve your tailgate today. For your next tailgate, just add people. Game Day Done Right, the exclusive provider of reserved tailgating opportunities for the University of Alabama, and offers packages for all group sizes for a single game or the entire season. So now the South Florida game in the rearview mirror. We're starting to get focused on SEC play this Saturday against the Ole Miss Rebels. And starting our week here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, we always hear from the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with his noon press conference on Monday. That, of course, is always streamed live on the Alabama Athletics YouTube channel, shared by us as well on all of our social media accounts. Here's Coach's Checklist, all that you need to know from Coach Saban's really impactful and very newsworthy Monday press conference here in Tuscaloosa.
So after watching the film, what I said after the game really kind of goes. We had a lot of players that really competed hard in this game, played hard, competed well. We didn't always execute the way we want to execute, and I think everybody can look to something that they can improve on, and that's certainly going to be, the focus, that we have this week. There's a responsibility that goes with that for the player, but also for the coaches, so that, we're doing things that players can do, so they can go on the field and play fast and know exactly what they're supposed to do and go out there and execute it. And I think that's, going to be important for all of us this week. So, when our guys get out there, they can play fast. Look, we're looking forward to, SEC opener. We've had 3 games to kind of evaluate our team in a lot of different areas. Ole Miss is a really, really good team. Lane has done a great job there with the program. This is one of the best offensive teams in the country in terms of things that they do, multiples that they have, the way their players are coached and how they execute. They're playing better on defense. So, this is a really, really good team. And, we're going to have to play, our best. And, we need to improve to be able to do that. On 2 points, I think, from a quarterback standpoint, this is all I'm going to say about this. Jalen really showed the leadership that I was looking for, during the game in terms of supporting his teammates and doing the things he needed to do. He's had the opportunity to play, so as the other guys. Jalen played the best of all those guys, and so I think he's earned the opportunity to be the quarterback. On this other thing that I hear floating around out there, I'm sure you've seen the same reports that I've seen, is Kevin Steele is the defensive coordinator. He has all the defensive coordinator responsibilities. The only thing that we tried to improve on from an administrative standpoint was game day administration of getting the signals in quicker. All right, so that's the only thing that we worked on together as a staff. The whole staff made a contribution to it, and I think it was a lot better in this game than it was in the Texas game. Well, I don't think when you give up 5 sacks, and I think that our players they ran a lot of blitzes, a lot of looks, nothing that we really, only one thing that they did that we'd not worked on. But I think the players were not communicating well and not on the same page, sometimes, and I think that created issues and problems. I thought that the offensive line played like our offensive line needs to play in the last, 6 minutes and 29 seconds of the game, and that's something that we want to build on. Well, I've been pleased with it. I think this was, the first game where I saw some guys, a little frustrated. And I think the frustration came maybe because we weren't as focused as we needed to be, which is my responsibility. So players go out and make some mistakes and things don't go well, and they get frustrated. And as a competitor, you never want to get frustrated. You always want to play the next play. But I think we talked about how everybody needs to buy in to doing the things they need to do to make their contribution to the team to play winning football. And I think as time goes on and the season goes on, everybody's role gets a little bit more clearly defined. Some guys may be disappointed in their role, but they have to buy into that if they want to make a contribution to the team in a positive way, whether it's on special teams or being a player that gets an opportunity because somebody's down, whatever that might be.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed, and a playoffs weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Good to hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban. He'll meet with the media once again coming up on Wednesday night. We'll have Coach's Checklist for you again coming up on Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR at 2 p.m. One of the things we love to do in our Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, is talk to an Alabama football legend. And recently, in the last few weeks, we've been talking to some relatively younger Alabama football players. Most of them were around for either the 2008 season, like Rashad Johnson last week, or Eric Anders and Marcel Darius before that on the 2009 team. This week, we're going all the way back to the Bryant era, back to 1969, and we talk with Scott Hunter, who was a quarterback for the Crimson Tide in a very notable win against Ole Miss. Always great to catch up with one of the real legends of Alabama football, former Crimson Tide quarterback Scott Hunter. Scott, it's great to see you, Roll Tide. It's always fun to talk about that win from 1969.
Oh, certainly. That takes you back a few years. Archie and I were talking about one time. He says, "Gosh, how long ago was that?"
Well, that's certainly good, and we're again excited to have you back in Tuscaloosa. And you mentioned your relationship with Archie Manning. Obviously, Archie had a great game for Ole Miss. You had a great game for Alabama. What did that really spark in terms of friendship for the two of you? Because you're forever linked thanks to that dramatic game in Birmingham.
Oh yeah, it was just a magic night for him. I mean, he couldn't have done anything more. Near 450 yards passing, 100 and something. Running the football. He did everything except, go sell popcorn. So it was just a fantastic night. And of course, we won the game 33-32, but I like to say we just seemed to have had the ball last.
Yeah, it was a crazy kind of night, more of a shootout than what we were used to seeing during the Bryant era. How did he manage all the times that the ball had to be in the air? We know how important ball security, running the football were to Coach Bryant.
Coach Bryant kept looking up there, and I heard him use a exclamation. Well, I can't say the word, but he said, "And we're behind again." And so that's the way the entire second half went. Every time I sat down on the bench after we got the lead, I'd look up and I'd see a ball fly over the tops of the helmets of the guys standing on the sideline. I'm over there looking at the Polaroids coming down from the press box of their coverages, and I'd see a ball flying over, and I hear the Ole Miss band playing. I said, "Well, we're behind again."
Well, that was a great win, of course, for the Crimson Tide. Later that season, the Iron Bowl, you also got to throw it around as you set a record at the time, 484 yards total passing against the Auburn Tigers, a record that stood until just a couple of years ago here in Tuscaloosa. What made that game so unique and why you had to throw the football so much against Auburn?
Well, Auburn had a great team that year. I guess 2 or 3 of their guys went to the NFL from their offensive line. They ran for near 400 yards. So every time I looked up again, we were behind, and Coach Bryant said, keep throwing. So I kept throwing to the last tick of the clock.
Yeah, you certainly did. And a great win for the Crimson Tide. And I understand you're even in the building. And once again, as one of our honorary captains in 2021 against Arkansas when Bryce Young broke that record. What was it like seeing him break that mark?
Well, I'm sitting there, and my friend next to me said, "Hey, he's getting close to that 484 yards." And I'm not paying much attention to that. I'm thinking about what we're going to do next and trying to, as I will do, watch a game and analyze it and so forth. And all of a sudden, he hits a receiver. And my friend turned to me and said, "He just broke your record." I said, "Well, it's about time."
That's certainly good. Would you have enjoyed playing in a modern style offense where you have to throw as much like we've seen the last few years here?
Oh, yeah. I told somebody this morning I was working out at the YMCA. I said, "Coach Saban would give me a helmet and I could play like 3 or 4 series to start the game all Saturday. I'd love to throw those to those receivers."
That's certainly true. Well, speaking of helmet, the 1969 season was really unique in that it was the 100th anniversary of college football. So you had 100 and a football logo on the side, not your typical numbers. Do you still have one of those helmets?
I do. I ordered one. I had one for years, and I think my son ran off with it and traded it for a Bo Jackson card or something of that nature. And so I ordered one because that's a unique year. And Alabama fans will ask me, "Well, why do we have a 100 on our helmet?" Well, the 100th anniversary of college football.
That was certainly pretty special. And for you as well, you get to be honored coming up on Saturday along with Johnny Musso, one of the great running backs in Tide history. For fans that maybe didn't get to watch him or haven't seen too many highlights, what would you tell them about how great of a running back he was?
Well, I played with running backs in high school and college and the NFL. And of course, got great running backs in the NFL like John Brockington, who came from Ohio State to the Green Bay Packers with me, and Johnny Anderson and so forth. But Johnny, the kind of back he was probably the best back I ever played with all around. He could run routes and catch. He would pick up blitzes and block like just a champ. He just did. I mean, he did everything.
He really
And
did.
people don't know. You look at a player, what he does with the football under his arm, but when you look at a player then on film, what he would do without the football, all those things I just mentioned, it was incredible. He saved that Ole Miss game. He came off his primary blitzing assignment. They left outside linebacker, seeing them run a stunt inside, and he came in there and knocked the defensive tackle down, or else I wouldn't have gotten the throw off to George Ranner, for the winning points.
Certainly a great career for you, for Johnny Musso as well. Tell the fans what you're up to these days.
Oh, just using that degree from the University of Alabama in finance, managing money with Raymond James Financial Services, trying to keep all the clients happy.
Well, Raymond James Stadium looked good the other day when we were there as the Crimson Tide picked up a win against South Florida. Scott, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a few memories on your playing days. We look forward to having you and Johnny Musso in town as our honorary captains this week. Just thank you so much for your time, and Roll Tide.
All right, Roger. Thank you, and looking forward to it. Roll Tide.
Crimson Drive is driven by NASCAR, and the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are returning to Talladega on October 1st. Don't miss your chance to witness epic playoff racing as the drivers continue their hunt for a championship. Purchase your tickets today for the Yellowwood 500 at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. Well, last night we got to talk a little bit about the South Florida game and look ahead to what's coming up on Saturday for Alabama against Ole Miss with Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, and that show was live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. So Corey Reamer and I had a great chance to catch up with a lot of our friends that always make the Monday night show a real tradition in Vestavia Hills, as we got, again, to talk about the win against South Florida, but most importantly, look ahead to what's coming up this Saturday as Alabama takes on Ole Miss. Here's what we like to call Be Kind, Crimson Tide Rewind.
Always good to talk after a win.
Yeah, it is. And it's even as ugly as it was, it's a win. And I think this game was a lot of feeling out for what the rest of the season is going to look like for this Alabama football team. There was obviously a change at quarterback, which has been the hot topic for today and the rest of the weekend and during the game. But defense plays well, holds South Florida to 3 points. It was nasty weather. You come away with a win, you got to take it, and we're happy with it. I mean, there's a lot to learn, but I think there was, even though it might not seem like it just while you're watching the game, there was a lot of improvement through different areas, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll take it. Now we turn our eyes to this gauntlet of an SEC schedule starting this weekend with Ole Miss.
Yeah, it will be exciting. We'll talk plenty about Ole Miss. We'll talk plenty about the game we just saw in Tampa as Alabama got the win. 17-3 was the final score against South Florida. And if you'd like to join us on the show tonight, we welcome your phone calls. Give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. We go back to the quarterbacks for just a minute. Obviously, we saw Tyler Buckner start the game. Ty Simpson late in the second quarter took over, and he finished the ball game for the Crimson Tide. Then today we learned from head coach Nick Saban the starting quarterback will be Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, after watching that game on Saturday, I'm not shocked. We knew what we had with Milroe. We've seen him now through 2 games this season. Got to start last year against Texas A&M. The coaching staff knew exactly what we had with him. And although the Texas game wasn't his best performance, he makes a lot of plays, and he seems to have won over the locker room. There's a lot that goes into how you determine who this starting quarterback is, other than just who it wins the battle. And I think going through camp, there wasn't a clear-cut winner for most of camp. I think that's why it was a question for a lot of fans going into the season of who the starter is going to be. There's a lot of it that it was reflected in the locker room, too. Who's the guy that's won over the locker room? Who's the one that the players have the trust in, and they want to go, to see those guys running out there. I remember, going into 2009, I believe it was, we had Star Jackson and Greg McElroy. There was a big quarterback battle going all the way through the summer, and a lot of the locker room at the beginning, when the battle really started to heat up in the summer, a lot of the locker room thought it was going to be Star Jackson's job. And you go through summer and you watch 7-on-7, you go through camp, and you could just tell slowly that Greg McElroy wins the locker room over just by how he performs during the summer and during fall camp. And this year, it just didn't seem like there was a clear-cut guy that stepped out. But I do think that the locker room was really behind Jalen Milroe. So going into this game, Coach Saban and that staff, after what happened against Texas, really had to just put all their chips on the table and see, all right, these 2 guys have had good weeks of practice. We need to figure out if what we see in practice translates into real live game experience. And you saw Buckner go out there, plays a quarter and a half, and there was just a few mistakes. There were some missed opportunities from him, and they quickly moved to Ty Simpson. And he goes out there and he does some things well, but also makes some of the same mistakes that Buckner did, just missing some throws, some obvious throws that you expect our quarterbacks to be making at this point. I think he did establish himself as that number 2 guy going forward, but we know that Jalen Milroe never saw the field because I think they really wanted to give both these quarterbacks an opportunity to put as much tape as possible to make an argument for themselves as the starter. And now we lean back, and Jalen Milroe is going to be the starter going into this week against Ole Miss. And I think he's earned it. You saw what he was able to do, even with the 2 interceptions and the mistakes that he made. He makes so many plays with his feet, the intangibles of being able to pick up up bad snaps and run through tacklers and extend plays. We just got to clean up the mistakes. Both guys on Saturday didn't turn the ball over, but that's one thing that Jalen Milroe's got to figure out going into this SEC schedule is how to take care and protect the football and not really shut down drives on things that we're doing. And some of those mistakes were not great mistakes. They're throwing into some pretty bad coverages. If he can clean that up and keep building his confidence going forward, he's going to be a good quarterback for us. But it's just going to take a lot of repetition and faith from this staff to go out there and be able to call the game plan that gives Jalen Milroe the best opportunity to succeed. And I think we've seen that might be a lot more with his feet than what we saw through the first two games.
Talked about the familiarity that Alabama has, of course, with Lane Kiffin. How about with the defensive coordinator for the Ole Miss Rebels in Pete Golding?
Yeah, Pete Golding's, everybody's familiar with him going from Tuscaloosa to Ole Miss. This is his first year over there with Lane Kiffin. Everybody always likes to point out, what's going to happen? You got all these coaches that are on other staffs. They know what you like to do. Well, it's the same in reverse. We know what Pete Golding likes to do and how he likes to call games. It helps out both teams both ways. And it comes down to, like Coach Saban always talks about, is who's going to go out there and execute better that's going to win these football games. He's a guy that got to see Alabama's offense up close and personal for a lot of last year through camp and in practice every single day. But this is a new offensive coordinator. Pete Golding, we kind of know more about him than he knows about Tommy Rees and how he likes to call this offensive game plan. And so I think it could go both ways. He's a guy their defense has not exactly been the best part of this team. I think it's an opportunity for our offense to go out there and impose our will a little bit against this Ole Miss defense. The big matchup that we've got to get ready for is just this high-powered offense that we're seeing from Ole Miss. I mean, they're averaging 53 points a game. I think a lot of that has to do, obviously, they put 72 or 73 up in the first game against Mercer. But still, they know how to put points on the board, and they're averaging over 500 yards of total offense per game. So Kevin Steele and this staff and this defense are going to have their work cut out for them. And we've seen this matchup before. These are usually some high-scoring games, and they like to go quick, and defense really isn't that effective. It's really who has the ball last and matchups that we've seen in the past from both of these teams. Hopefully that's not what it comes down to, judging by what we've seen from our offense going through the season so far. We're really going to lean heavily on this defense to go out there and get some stops. And then our offense is going to have to take over the football game, and we're going to see a heavy dose of Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. I mean, this is the opportunity for them to really take away what Ole Miss likes to do, which is have a lot of possessions, move fast. The big thing that we're going to have to be ready for, and what we saw from Texas, is them taking a lot of shots deep. And they like to run sideline to sideline, kind of lull the defense to sleep, and then hit the home run shot. And they've got plenty of weapons on the outside to make that happen.
What's going to be most important for Jalen Milroe this week, now that he enters the week, knowing he's a starter, knowing he's going to get that opportunity to begin this ball game against the Rebels?
Yeah, the biggest thing is he's just going to have to step into this week and know he's the guy and be the leader that this team is desperately looking for. I think that's been a big issue going into camp and into the season of who's the guy, who's going to really take over and start commanding more from the rest of the team. Hopefully, after what we saw last week, and now you've named Jalen Milroe as the starter, he's going to go in there with a little extra level of confidence. All you heard about while Jalen Milroe was the starter is, when are we going to give some of these other guys a shot? Well, we saw what both of those guys can do. Jalen Milroe gives this team the best shot at winning football games right now. And hopefully that gives him a little edge going out there to compete. The biggest thing for him, though, is we've just got to take care of the football. You can't give Ole Miss and this offense more possessions than they are already going to get during a game, because they're going to try to take advantage of the more they have the ball, the more opportunities they have to score. It's not science. It's just you got to keep this offense off the field, protect the football, have some long sustained drives, and really get this running game going to keep to keep their offense off the field.
It has been fascinating to see what the SEC has looked like so far through the first 3 weeks. Some ups and maybe a lot of downs.
Yeah, I mean, this is a year that we haven't seen a long time from the SEC. You've got a lot of teams that are kind of in flux of what they're going to look like. Who's going to be the guys that are going to emerge from both divisions? And you've got some teams that already have losses. You saw LSU bounce back this past weekend against Mississippi State. And then you saw Tennessee, who a lot of people had high expectations for, go down to a Florida team that really kind of got embarrassed by Utah the first game of the season. So it's been a long time since we've had so many unknowns across the board in this SEC conference. We're going to find out. We saw Georgia against South Carolina being down 2 touchdowns early on. You just don't know what you're going to get. But this weekend's going to be the test. I mean, this is opening up of conference play. We talked about it a couple weeks ago after we lost to Texas, that everything that we still have set out for this team is still in play, but it starts this week. The real test is finally here. And Lane Kiffin's going to be, he knows that. He's geared up. This team better be ready to respond after what we saw this past weekend. He is going to try to catch us off guard as much as he possibly can. And he does a great job of finding ways to create the mismatches and get the ball in the hands of his best, most athletic players. That's what he's always done. It's what he did in Tuscaloosa. It's what he continues to do over at Ole Miss. And like we talked about earlier, a lot of those pre-snap motions, a lot of burst formations, just trying to figure out how to confuse the defense a little bit and get some of those ideal matchups where he's getting a running back on a linebacker, or one of the better receivers on a linebacker or a safety, to really try to exploit those and find some ways to make some big plays. So a lot to play for, but it's finally here. Conference play is here for us, and we've got to be ready to go.
And it sounds cliche, but for the offense, most important thing, take care of the football.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit it so many times, but I mean, it continues to be the point of emphasis for this team. And Coach Saban has said this from day one when he got to Tuscaloosa. The recipe for success is always taking care of the football and not shooting ourselves in the foot. And that happens with penalties. I think we had another big play this past weekend that resulted in a touchdown that gets called back by something that we did. I think that's 4 on the season that we've had end up in the end zone that have gotten called back because of penalties. And that's one thing you just can't have when you're facing a lot of these SEC teams is taking points off the board for us. So taking care of the football, eliminate some of the penalties. The penalty bug we avoided it the first week of the season, but it's come back to haunt us these last few games. So we've got to get that cleaned up.
Always fun on Monday nights with Corey Reamer, and to watch a full replay of that show, just go to our YouTube channel. It is uploaded there, Crimson Tide Rewind from last night. That show helped kick off some of our programming on the Crimson Tide Sports Network this week, but to see what's coming up the rest of the week, we have to take a look at our weekend update that's always brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We've got the relish, we got the pickle chips, so many different flavors to choose from online at WicklesPickles.com. Let's see what's coming up across the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Thursday, always busy. Of course, that day we have another edition of Crimson Drive at 2 p.m. There's always a new episode as well of Tide TV This Week, going to all our TV affiliates across the state, as well as on the Alabama Athletics YouTube page. Of course, Tide TV This Week, hosted by Kenzie Hughes. And then Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show on Thursday night starting at 6:30. We're really looking forward to what's coming up this week with Eli Gold hosting. He'll be previewing that coming up on Crimson Drive. We'll have a video preview for you on Friday, kind of giving you a sample of all the best of our interviews from the week. And then coming up on Saturday, it's time to play football. It's Alabama against Ole Miss. 2:30 the kickoff time. Our radio coverage starting at 11:30 in the morning coming up on Saturday. Sunday, Coach Saban as well as Chris Stewart will take a look back at the ball game with the Nick Saban television show. And then again on Monday, we start the party again with Crimson Tide Rewind, looking back at the Ole Miss game and then looking forward to what's coming up, a late night in Starkville next Saturday against Mississippi State. That's what's coming up here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, thanks to our friends at Wickles Pickles. And that's going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to the guests that we had today, starting with former Crimson Tide quarterback Scott Hunter, as well as current Crimson Tide linebacker Deontae Lawson. We had him as one of our one-on-one interviews. Coming up on Thursday's show at 2 o'clock, we'll talk to J.C. Latham, one of the outstanding offensive linemen for the Crimson Tide, plus Eli Gold, along with Tom McCarthy of CBS. So great show coming up on Thursday. Certainly hope you can join us. That show plus this show put together by our video producer, Ethan Carabin. Great job by Ethan, and thanks to all of you for watching. For everybody at the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you again, and Roll Tide. We'll see you back here Thursday on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.